Good day, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. It has been, amazing to see everything coming together. I'm gonna go and take us through just a few slides before we start. But welcome to everyone. I think this is amazing that we can do this and get together. Welcome to our one of our Global XTL Summit series. This has been a highlight. It's not been planned. And Robert, welcome here. I really appreciate your views and your inputs, and I think we can have a lovely time.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
This is just our legal clarifications. Make sure about everything that you look at. Our mission and vision and our objectives for the Global XTL Summit is really to enable the industry, to create a collaboration platform, and also to be the voice. And we're going to talk a little about the three words: ownership, leadership, and stewardship. And we'll get into that a bit later. We've had a number of events to date, a number of them addressing some of the key components of how do we make the XTL industry, and for that matter also any of the major developments viable. And we will continue with this webinar series, but there's a few components, and today we're going to talk to Robert about some of the softer skills. I want to thank you, the sponsors, Cerilon, Indie Ventures, and then Spartan, Emerson, and Hatch, for coming alongside and really supporting the industry. Thank you, guys. And I'm also making available, Robert said, this is my contact details, and this is available for everyone to, make, contact with him and to address. Robert is, a world-renowned athlete, but also consultant and doing a lot of work. But let's start off, with, where we are today. Robert, if I read your resume, what you do, where you've been in the world, and everything that you've been involved, it is such an amazing thing to see. I appreciate your heart, your insight, and your wisdom. And I think where we can learn a lot from this is, all of us are in the world with looking at the technical, professional, vocational experience and insights, but we tend to forget sometimes the softer side of issues. How do we actually, look at perseverance? How do we actually cope with the mental side? How do we cope with the environment that we're facing today? I really like, the military term for this environment. They call it VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. And by looking at this type of environment, this is what we're sitting today. We don't know what is going to happen tomorrow. We don't know what is going to happen with industries, major changes. But that means that it's not just all of us should cope with things in just the business. I can go to the office and I can work, but now I'm working from home. I'm working with my family. I work with relationships. I work with softer things that I'm not always sure how do I address that. So, Robert, it's going to be a pleasure. I think we're going to enjoy this thoroughly. So, give me a bit of background. I mean, who is Robert Owens? I mean, I see the amazing athlete, nominated by Spartan Games as the fittest 66-year-old in the world. You've done the 7x7. You're training Navy SEALs with the Coco Challenge. But who is this Robert that is consulting to major, countries, chiefs of staff, different places in the world? So there's a consulting arm in you, but a lot of that has been driven by your internal capability to persevere, to think it different, to continue to have the mental capability to do things. And if we as business people don't have that mental capability, it all falls down. But let's start. Maybe give me, who is Robert Owens, and give us a bit of background about Robert.
I was special ops military in my 20s. And when I got out of the military, uh, people said to me, do you still train guys? Do you still train people? I said, sure. Who do you want? Who do you want to be trained? And so they would invite me to their office and they'd say, can you talk to my staff or can you talk to this group? And so, 5 people became 10 people, became 100 people. Pretty soon I found myself consulting on how to develop leaders out of followers, as well as how to work on management systems that are more user friendly to the employee, and how to raise middle managers. And over the years, just wild like I've been in like 30 nations. And if you hear a jet going overhead, I'm in Southern California. I'm in Newport Beach, and I decided to come outside this morning because it's a beautiful day, but we have jets flying overhead occasionally, so I apologize. But as I began to do this stuff, it took me to about 30 nations. Um, and it's been pretty interesting. I really found myself drawn to communist bloc nations. I used to smuggle into the Soviet bloc during the Cold War, leadership stuff in and political documents out. And then I found myself doing a lot of work in China, 12 trips to China, doing all kinds of free enterprise, entrepreneurship, how to think outside the box things. And then that took me over to Africa. And I based out of Cape Town, made 15 trips in and out of Cape Town to Tanzania, to Zimbabwe, Zambia, Nigeria, different places. And each one was sort of, what are the basics that every culture has to deal with when they're working with people? And do you want to have soft skills, or do you just want to be a dictator and tell them what to do? Interesting, years ago, was invited to the Philippines to the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the military. And the issue there was we have men who are trained by West Point here in the States, and they're generals and they're good men. But the challenge is what we need is not better generals, what we need is better men. How do we get men to make the right decision when no one's looking? With the Muslims or with counterterrorism? How do we get men to think better under pressure? And so anyway, the last 30 years has been just sort of being a troubleshooter and saying, what's your issue? What's your goal? How much time do you have? What's your budget? Who's your people? Can you do it with these people? And to go to the next level, can you take these people with you? Or have they ceilinged out in their hard skills as well as their soft skills? Can they adapt and change again? And again, most people don't like to change. Most people like to do things the way they like to do things. And especially leaders, this is my way or the highway, as we say. This is what we do and you do it the way I tell you, versus a leader learning to adapt and change and grow and develop his soft or her soft skills even more. So it's been a fun journey. The athlete part is that I've done Ironman triathletes as a way of relating to men for a long, long time. So that's a 2.5-mile swim and a 112-mile bicycle ride and then a marathon nonstop. And I do those because when I relate to men, sometimes they say, who are you? What do you do? And I say to them, I don't know, I'm an athlete, and I continue in my 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s to do those. And they say, well, how do you do that? And I say, you get mentally squared away. It's the mind quits before the body does. So it's all a mind game. And they then look to me and say, oh, and I say, so what do you do? And they say, I do whatever they do. And I say, great. As that unfolds, I wanted to do something in my 60s. I wanted to see if I could get as strong in my 60s as I was in my 20s when I was special ops military. So I did a 3-year experiment, and that was just something for me to see if my body did not have to just fade as I got older, but if it could grow and it could become young-like again. And so as it turned out, did 5 events, 4 of which I was told, you're too old, don't even show up. We don't even want you to show up. You're just old. And I said, I'm going to make you eat those words. And so I showed up and did these 5 events, 4 of which I was told I was the oldest guy in the world to even consider it. And I was able to prove to me and to them that there is 20 times more potential in us at any age than we've ever allowed someone to bring out of us. Meaning, I can't do these things on my own. I need a mentor or a coach to help me grow into places that I would not normally grow on my own because there's too much pain. Mental pain, emotional pain, physical pain, relational pain. There's just some things just are hard. And so I surround myself with experts in those fields, and then I let them drive me and berate me. You're lazy. Why are you a quitter? And I let Navy SEAL types or pro athletes get in my space at 66 years old and say, Owens, what's your deal? Come on. You got more in you than you know. Anyway, and it come to find out that I do have more in me than I know. And so do all of you that are listening to me. But you just have to have the right person mentor you and bring out of you what is hidden in there, meaning that there are at least 2 people in you. There's the person that you're living today, and there's the person inside of you that wants to come out and says, I wish I could, or if only I. And there's always another person in all of us who says, let me out, I can do that. And then there's the lazy person on the outside that says, hey, relax, don't rock the boat, just be you, stay overweight, stay full of excuses, just relax. And the other person says, no, I can do that. I want to try. And so we need someone to bring that person out of us. So that's sort of who I am. I love working with kids. I love training special ops students today and those in the military. And it's just fun to either do business or it's fun to do the athlete side and help people grow and gain confidence and get wins in their life. So that's sort of a long answer.
Yeah, no, it's a good answer, Robert. Knowing you for a few years, I mean, I've got a few stories that I want to pull out of you. The one is, you said in the past that I'm never first, but I am consistently 9th and 10th for a long period of time, and it talks to that perseverance. I'm there. I'm showing up. Talk a little bit about what is driving you for showing up every time, to take on that challenge every time. And that's the relation to what we talk about, the ability to face pain, the ability, whether it's mental pain, whether it's physical pain, but what is driving you to actually do that consistently over a long period of time?
We're all gifted differently. We're all wired differently. I wrote the book Beyond Average because in my life, I always felt average or mediocre. I was never a first placed athlete. I was never first team. I was never first all league. I was never picked first. And so I found that when men said to me, I believe in you, and if you do what we say, you can do this. When my own brain said, I can't do it. I don't think I can. But when others had faith in me, I had faith in their faith in me. And this started back in high school. And I would do what they said I could do because I believed that they were right. They saw something in me. And when I began to get wins of outlasting other people, I wasn't the best, but I could go for a long time. And when I began in my teens to learn that, and then my 20s in special ops, so like when these guys said to me, you need to be in the special ops. And for me, it was Air Force, and it's called pararescue, and it's the Air Force Navy SEALs. And so the Air Force Navy SEALs is to rescue all the other guys. So Army, Navy, Marines are all offense, but the Air Force is defense. We're paramedics, combat paramedics, and we jump out of planes with Uzis and with knives and IV bags and epinephrine and morphine, and we parachute into somebody and rescue them and get them out in battle. And when these guys said to me, you have what's needed to do this if you'll just focus. And I'm not a real good focuser, at least in those days, because I was all over the place. But when I focused, sure enough, I was able to do what they said I could do that I didn't have confidence that I could do. In our class, there was 150 guys starting, and we were done. We graduated 7. And I was one of the 7. I said, we're all the good guys. And they had all quit. And they had not learned the mental work, practiced the mental work that takes to not quit, which is a whole nother topic. And when I learned those skills, then I decided, I wonder what else I could do just to see if I could do it. And so your question is, why do you keep showing up? It's because I like the challenge. I like the challenge of seeing something supposedly nearly impossible and then figuring it out and then developing the strategy of what it's going to take and then getting the right people to train me and then pull off the nearly impossible. And it's so much fun. When I turned 50, my oldest son, big kid, said, God, Dad, you're really old. And I said, shut up. And he said, hey, you're half a century old, Dad. I mean, you're old. And I said, I don't like this. You're a punk kid. And I'm going to put this in your face. So I made a comeback with my Ironmans and said, you watch. And then I dare you to do what I'm going to do. And I just enjoyed the challenge of, I wonder if, because we all have one of those, I wonder if inside of us. And it's been just sort of a lifestyle of, I wonder if. Recently, I got a doctorate. I didn't want the doctorate. I didn't need a doctorate. I don't use a doctorate. But these people said, why don't you get a doctorate in leadership development? And I said, well, what am I going to do with a doctorate? And they said, you'll like doing it. And I said, all right. So I don't try to be a doctor. I don't use the word doctor, but I said, I wonder if I could really get a doctorate, me. And so I studied and I wrote the papers, did the things, and wouldn't you know it, end up with a doctorate. And I said, well, that's quite something. I didn't think I could do that. So all of you listening to me, you all have challenges. It's just if you accept the challenge and then you go into training mentally to learn how to do the things that people say you probably shouldn't try or you can't do. And I like that kind of a challenge.
Robert, and I'm looking at just the energy industry and what we're facing today. And there's, so many people coming at us at so many levels. And, it's easy to quit. It's easy to say, no, I can't do this. But I also, there's in all of us, as you said, the 2 types of people. And you said something to me, some time ago. It said, I know more than what I live.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, quite a profound statement in saying, there's more that I can actually do than, what I live. And there's a timing issue. But, to be able to do that, I also appreciate what you're saying about, get the guys around you that knows this stuff. Get the strategic input. Go and get help. I myself have got a coach. So you sit with a coach and say, what do we do to actually be better? What do I do in that area of my life or that area in my life? Maybe I'm not so good with, relationship with, this or that. Let me sort that out. So get some training in people. Talk a little bit about your approach of, the focus, but there's intentionality and there's strategy, because you actually get the best people that can help you cope. And then you still got, you need to take ownership. If, I want to be something and be great in something, I need to take ownership. And that means I need to step into leadership. Talk a little bit about that.
I find that the older we get, oftentimes in business, the less humility we have. In your 20s and 30s, you want to be that, I know everything, I can do anything, blah, blah, blah. If you're not careful, that becomes a lifestyle. And it limits you We find that the strongest men are the ones that can ask for help. The ones that are insecure cannot ask for help. So secure men can ask for help because they know who they are, and it doesn't rock their manhood to say, I'm not very good in this area. I would like some mentoring or help. Insecure men act like they have it all together all the time about everything.
Yeah.
When I started having children, I came from a family where my sister was much older than me, and I felt like a single child, two kids, and I was by myself. When I got married, I wanted to have a lot of kids. Why? Because I wanted to see what it was like to have a big family. When I started having children, and we had five, three girls and two boys. When I started having children, I found out that they were harder to raise than I thought. They presented challenges that I didn't know what to do. And so I knew a man, and he was a vice president of a university. And he had three boys that just seemed perfect. I mean, a doctor, a lawyer, and a dentist, and they're all successful. And so I just went to him and I said, I don't know how to have a family like you do. You've raised kids. Can you help me know how to raise kids? And he looked at me and said, sure, what do you want to know? And I said, my kids do wild things. And I'm not sure about discipline. I'm not sure about consequences. I'm not sure if I'm too hard, if I'm a military guy and I'm too severe, or if I'm compassionate enough. And so he said, what do you want to do? I said, I just need to pick your brain if you could help me learn how to raise kids.
Yeah.
And so he said, sure, let's meet. And he started giving me books. And once a month, I'd read a book or something, and then I'd sit down with him for coffee for an hour or so, and he would quiz me about what I'm learning about kids. And so he mentored me. He mentored me raising my five kids. My marriage, it was difficult with the five kids and the pressure of my work and things. So I said to another guy, hey, you have a really good marriage. My marriage isn't that good. Could you help me with my marriage? He says, what do you want to do? I said, I want to understand her better. I seem to miss something. And so he said, sure. He said, read this book and let's meet. And I said, okay. And he walked me through things that I thought were just nearly impossible. He said, no. You don't have the soft skills. You don't listen well. You're ready to talk over her. You interrupt, blah, blah, blah. And so I worked on my marriage being mentored. Thirdly, my father never talked to me about finances. He never talked to me about stocks and bonds and mutual funds. He didn't talk to me about long-term investments. He did them and he was quiet. So I'm working with five kids and I said, I wonder if I can make money better. So I went to a guy that's a millionaire and said, hey, would you mind talking to me about money? It seems like you just grow money. I mean, you just snap your finger and there's another $100,000 or so. He said, sure. So I sat down with him and he began to say, this is how you make money. And this is how money makes money. And this is compound interest. And this is this and that. And pretty soon I asked for three mentors on marriage, kids, and money. And guess what? I got better. And I find that most men are insecure. They act like they have it all together. Some women too. Women are a little bit more open about things. And I just said, I don't want to be a loser. And I want to figure this thing out. And there are people smarter than me. And I need to surround myself, and I knew this from business, with people smarter than me. I don't have to be the guy that has all the ideas. Surround yourself with people that are smarter and more gifted in different areas. And so that's sort of been I learned that in my 30s. And so my 40s, my 50s, my 60s, I've always went to find mentors who know more than I do. And I think in life, if you want to stay in the game, you should always have mentors. They're about 10 to 15 years older than you. And you should always be mentoring kids 10 to 15 years younger than you. And if you're always learning and if you're always giving, you're always growing. If you're always learning and if you're always giving it out, because the teacher always learns more than the student, because every time the teacher teaches it, he learns more about his subject than what he's giving to the student. And so for me, I've always had mentors in my life on leadership, on character, on kids, on finances. And I've seen something in somebody and I've said, I want what they have. How can I get it? And then I go to them and say, I want to have what you have. I want to learn. I want to be like you in this area, because no one person has it all together. There's no perfect person. But there are men and women with giftings, and it's worked well for me to have humility. When we work with our Navy SEAL guys and our Air Force pararescue guys after combat, many of them are messed up inside. With the term PTSD, they're screwed up in their heads. They got anger issues and unforgiveness issues and bitterness and unresolved stress, and they drink and they do drugs and they do bad things. And when we get with them, we say to them, are you willing to grow up and become mature? We know you can shoot a gun. We know you can take people's lives, but can you personally grow up? And they look at you and we say, you've got to ask for help. But you don't think you can ask for help because you don't want to be vulnerable. And we say, if you're immature, you will not ask for help because you're insecure. But if you're mature, you'll say, I'm messed up. I'm screwed up. I need help. And then they get help, and it doesn't affect, again, their stature, their manhood. They just learn, oh, I have an area of need, and it's okay to ask for help. And I don't know about those listening, if they understand all that, but the insecure person will always act like they have it always together because they don't want to be embarrassed or ashamed that they don't have it all together. And so they act like they do. And you can see when I walk into a room full of men and leaders and CEOs and stuff, I just sit, don't say anything, I just watch. And I just watch the way they talk. I watch the way they think. I watch the way they interact. And you can smell guys, guys are guys, and women are women. You can smell leaders and who needs to put on the dog, like I'm hot, and who's just very comfortable in their own skin, and they are working on their issues.
No, that's that takes up some, how can we say, growing up, and the perseverance to actually go back and say, you know what, I've messed up. Let me get back. Let me get on the horse again. I so like what a lot of the great athletes always said. Baseball. I mean, you go to basketball. Johnson said, I'm not the guy that has got it all together, but I'm the guy that getting up the most and try the most and try again and try again and try again. And I think a lot of it is about life, and it's to actually look at that threshold of pain that we're willing to face. Facing, COVID for the last 12 months, reasonable. Now it's getting to 15, 16, 18 months. You're getting more and more, and it's starting to say, you know what, this is starting to be a long haul, and we don't know what the answer is. Where is it going to end? And that means that you are willing to face the change and willing to step up to that. Robert, talk a little bit about,
Hey, Nico, let me just close that part with this. Pro athletes here in the United States, the best pro athletes have 3 coaches. They have the physical skills coach, like a quarterback has a quarterback coach, how to play quarterback. Then he has, secondly, a conditioning coach. Are you in shape? But the best pro athletes here in the United States have a mental coach.
Yeah.
They have hired someone to teach them how to think right. And it's so much fun to listen to the interviews of these top-notch athletes, and they say, I have a skills coach, teach me how to, kick the ball for soccer or whatever. I have an exercise coach or conditioning coach so I can get in shape. But I've found a psychologist, a sports psychologist, who teaches me how to think and rebound from failure and rebound from discouragement and rebound from what the media has said about me. And I think that most leaders are making a mistake because they don't have a mental coach. And we teach that you've got to have the ability to have a mind gym where you work on your mind every day as much as a physical gym where you go work out. And so most guys are willing to work out in the gym or on the field or in their athletic endeavor, but they don't put in the time to develop their minds. And when we train our special ops guys, we train them to have a mind gym to work on going from emotionally immature to mature. We cannot take an 18 to 30-year-old and invest millions of dollars in them to have them screw up by making a stupid decision where it's going to cost them or their team their lives. And so we work with these young people to teach them the mental work it takes to think right and not emotionally immature, and to get out of being fragile where they easily get rocked, and they stay in their training and they make good decisions. And that takes a lot of work. And CEOs and business leaders need to work on their thinking just as much as they do their leadership skill sets. And most don't want to do it. Most don't know how to do it. Most don't know anything about it. And they just think what they think, and they act the way they act. And if you don't like it, to heck with you. And we say, you don't get it. You need to spend more time thinking about your thinking.
Yeah.
And learning to look the way you think and say, this is not good. And those are not my thoughts. These are thoughts that people have planted in my brain that don't belong there. So for those watching or listening to me, I have a skills coach, I have a exercise coach, I have a conditioning coach, but I also have a mind group that I'm in a class called Unbeatable Mind, where I'm working on my mind to think not 60, not 70, not 50, but to think right and positive no matter what your age. And I work on my mind gym every day. Just a thought.
Yeah, and it's absolutely true, Robert. If we look at that, I mean, let's say we're facing things in life. I I lose friends to COVID. I lose family members. I lose things. What do I need to recognize in that and say, you know what, I'm going through a tough time. What do I need to actually look at to give me the different perspective, not just my perspective, about what I'm going through. Maybe it is, grieving. Maybe it is, strategic. Maybe it's, how do I adapt to this digital work? Maybe how do I work with online? How do I, cope with my family? But get those insights and say, you know what, I'm going to work and get those insights, and then that's going to help me to get a different perspective, and then it's up to me to actually take action. Um,
Let me mention on that.
Yeah.
I don't allow any negative people in my life. I've gotten rid of all of them. I listen to the way people talk. I listen to the way people think. And I don't need people who blah, 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 negativity, can't, couldn't, shouldn't, nasty speaking about other people. I don't allow them in my life. Why? Because I have enough negativity in my own head that I have to wrestle with and push out, much less let theirs come in and influence me as well. And so I work really hard on, I'm not 66, I'm not 69, I'm not 59. I am in the game. I'm sharp. I'm gifted. I can do this. If I can't figure it out, I'll find smart people to help me. And I'm positive. I have faith, hope, and love, not fear, doubt, and unbelief. And so, when I came home from the 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents, called the World Marathon Challenge, and that's sort of an interesting thing, starting in Antarctica and then running 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents. I had to train my mind to take on that kind of stuff and the pain that comes from 20 below zero in Antarctica running a marathon to 90 degrees above the next day in Cape Town and getting through that. But when I came home, I had a heart attack. And I had a heart attack, and I remember waking up in bed, and my wife said, "You okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I'm having a heart attack." And she said, "What?" And she has a nursing background. And I said, "Yeah, I think I'm having a heart attack. There's a kettlebell sitting on my chest, and my arm's going dead over here on my left arm, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, so what's your mail? And she started freaking out, like, oh my God. And I went, hey, don't say a word. Stay in the game. It's no big thing. Positive. It's going to work out just fine. Just go call the doc, call the insurance company. It's a nice day to have a heart attack. it's not, oh, I'm going to die. I'm not going to go negative. I'm not going to go panic. I'm not going to lose control of my brain. Get on the phone. Let's go have a nice heart attack. So I got up out of bed. I went in the shower, took a shower, shaved. Said if I'm going to have a heart attack, might as well smell good, look good. Might as well have a nice day. Drove into the place, and they said, what's wrong with you at the hospital? I said, I'm just having a heart attack. And they said, no, you're not. I said, yeah, I am. And they said, no, you're not. You're too calm. I said, I don't lose it. I'm having a heart attack. Anyway, everybody around freaks out. And I say, just do the deal. We can do this. Keep me awake. I want to watch. I want to see the whole thing happen. When the heart attack ended, I said, great. They put 3 stents in my lower right ventricle. Let's get out. And I said, let's figure this thing out. And I ran a half marathon, 2 months later, just to see how the engine was working. Then COVID came, and I got COVID. And when COVID came, it kicked my butt. But I said, feels like the flu. And my wife said, what do you think? I said, feels like the flu. Should be interesting. And so I rode this COVID thing, and at 104 temperature, and then go down, 104 temperature, go down. And she'd say, how do you feel? I said, no problem. Just riding the Bronco. This is sort of fun. Haven't been sick like this before. Let's see what happens. Meaning I'm not going to go negative.
Yeah.
I'm not going to panic. I'm not going to let my circumstances drain me of my mental work. Bring it on. This is not a big deal. We'll get through this. Today, people say, what are you doing? I say, you get rocked too easy. You're out of control emotionally. You never know one day to the next if you're up or down. If the stock market's high, you're happy. If the stock market's bad, you're out of it. You need to get control of your emotions and grow up and stop being emotionally mature and think right. And it takes the work of the brain to practice rewiring your mind with neuroplasticity from the negative to the positive. And I just know that there's people listening to me today that say, I'd like to do that. And I'm telling you, you can do it. You can live positive, and you can be on top of things and not let things rock you, but it takes work, because life has a way of coming up and slugging you in the stomach sometime and knocking the wind out of you. And if you're not careful, you'll implode, make bad decisions during that time. And we train our military guys. You don't have the opportunity to make a bad decision. You cannot do it because someone's going to die. This is how you think under fire. And I hope that encourages someone listening today.
Yeah, Robert, I think there's 2 questions coming up already, and maybe we maybe what we do, Robert, I think we talk a lot about leadership, and I know you want to play this video. What do you think? I mean, we play the video, and then you comment on the video, and some of the things that is coming out of this is from a friend of yours, and I think that is talk about what are some of the characteristics and what are the key things as a leader that you want in your team, and what do I need to portray to be able to do that. But it's the same for my marriage. This the same for my my children. It's same for other things. Maybe you want to comment before we start running the video.
Sure. This guy his name is Mark Devine. He's a 22-year retired. He was active duty Navy SEAL commanding officer for 22 years. He's now retired, and he has a leadership training organization called Unbeatable Mind. And he tells a story on this video that I just thought maybe some of you would like. And he has a book, Staring Down the Wolf, which means staring down the fear in your life. And everybody has fears or pressures, and how do you stare it down? Anyway, this video is sort of fun. It's about General McRaven, who is a very famous general here in the United States, and what he was like when he was a younger guy that allowed him to go from a junior officer to being a general and overseeing the Middle East forces in the Middle East. So you might like this, and then we'll take some questions if you want. But when you see the size of this wave in this movie, that's a real wave. That thing's over 50 feet high. And to think that those kind of waves are what our guys work through, that's an interesting thing. So I think you might enjoy the video instead of hearing me talk. And then we can talk afterwards about take some questions.
Good. And I know there's a few questions. Darcy also asked, is there this unbeatable mind class available? Robert, I think you guys can coach people. I mean, you can help people work through this and talk to teams. I know you've spoken with our team, and it was quite amazing. So you are available, and the contact details are there. But let's watch the video. It is quite interesting to see this.
Here we go.
Trust. What is it? How do you develop it? And how do you stare down the fear of failure that holds you back from trust? Trust is the second commitment that builds elite teams. So as an authentic leader, one with the emotional awareness and the development to really, really cultivate trust in your team, you have to do this. Stare down your fear of failure. Now, in the first commitment, we talked about courage. On top of courage comes trust, which is the glue that holds a team together. I tell the story in my book, Staring Down the Wolf, of my SEAL Team 3 commanding officer, McCraven. And he's now a retired 4-star admiral who ran all of the Special Operations Command. He was an extremely effective leader in the SEAL teams. At SEAL Team 3, this is one of his first major leadership roles at a command level. And he had gotten there right at the end of a deployment that I was having. And I turned my Alpha platoon over to another young officer. And McCraven was leading the operational readiness exam for them, which is their final test before deploying on their 6-month deployment. And they were up in Morro Bay, California, where the waves are notorious for being these absolute boomers where they get channeled into Morro Bay. And that particular mission, the leader sent his swimmer scouts out, and they got to the surf, the back edge of the surf zone, and they wouldn't go through it. They said it was way too risky. These were like massive waves. Had they brought their boats in, it's possible that they wouldn't have made it or they would have died. So they made the right call. And it was a call that McCraven challenged the next day. He was not happy. He said, this is what Navy SEALs do. We've got to push the envelope. We've got to master our environment of the ocean. And how are we going to learn this if we don't be courageous? You remember the first commitment, and go forward with a high degree of risk tolerance. So there was a little bit of a conflict or a standoff between the JO junior officer and McCraven. McCraven asked him to go do it again the next day. Well, it turned out that they had an indigenous fishing boat, which was the way they got into Morro Bay, and the fishing boat driver said, no, I am not going back out there. So they ended up scrapping the whole mission. 9 months later, the sister platoon was up in Morro Bay. Same scenarios playing out. They're doing their operational readiness exam. McCraven goes up to check on them. He sees that there's a special boat unit out there who's supporting the exercise, who's getting ready to go through the surf zone. Just so happens the surf is about the same as it was with Alpha Platoon. McCraven goes out, talks to the crew, says, hey, what are you going to do? The crew, and my friend Gene Peluso was leading that, said, we're going to go for this. We've been training up in Alaska. We've got the best boat drivers in the world. We're going to take a run at this surf in these rigid hull inflatable boats. McCraven, being someone who leads from the front, which is a core competency of developing trust, by the way, says, great, grab me a life jacket. I'm going with you. So they turn their bows toward the surf. 3, 2, 1, go. They step on the gas. They go up, up, up. And they didn't time it properly. And they got to the top of this wave, went airborne. The boat slammed down, broke the hull, and one of the boat coxswains or one of the boat crew were thrown into the ocean. They couldn't wait, so they gunned it up the second set, and this time it was game over. This wave was so massive that it took the boat up, up, up. They came over the top, they launched, they went down, and they flipped upside down, ass over tea kettle. And all the operators were thrown into the water, including McCraven, broken ankles, and it was a serious mess. The SEAL platoon, which was watching this from the shore, made haste with getting their Zodiac boats out, and they hauled all these individuals out of the water and were able to save everyone's life, including McCraven's. Well, this was a major, major mess up, and there was a big investigation. And a lot of people expected that McCraven would take a major hit and that his career would be sidelined as a result of this. But he did three things extremely well that really built trust. Trust with his team at SEAL Team 3, and trust with those who were doing the investigation and his bosses. First was that he was extremely transparent about the whole thing. He admitted that they had screwed up. He admitted that they didn't know, for sure whether they were going to do this or be able to make it through that surf zone. He was very transparent. He didn't point the finger at anyone else. He didn't blame the boat crew. He didn't blame the training. He didn't blame the weather. He just said, I own this, and he was transparent about it, and that built great trust. Second, there was unbelievable follow-through. So he took care of everyone who was injured. He, dealt with their families in a really delicate way. He went to the team and he said, this is what we're going to do. We're not going to be fearful about this. We're going to courageously lean into still learning how to do this. What mistakes were made? How can we get through surf zone like this? Because in combat, we may have to do it. And we're going to follow through to extract every single lesson. And that follow through actually led to eventually the creation of the Special Warfare Combat Crewman program, which is a like buds for boat drivers, which is a great program. And we have some world-class operators coming through the SWIC program and working in our boat units. And the third, and this is critical for every leader who wants to develop elite teams, and that is humility. Got to stare down your fear of failure, check your ego at the door, and be humble. You don't have to be the one who's always right. You admit your screw-ups when you screw up, and you take responsibility, right, when you're the leader, even if other people are involved in the screw-up or the failure. So humility, and McCraven showed great humility to me and to the others at his team through this process. So that's the commitment of trust. When you build trust on top of the commitment of courage, boy, the team will start really, really clicking and humming. And there are some other commitments that need to be adhered to, and you need to stare down your wolf of fear for all of these, but courage and trust are two of the biggies. If you want to know more about the book, go to staringdownthewolf.com, and you can order it there as well. Thanks for listening. Trust.
Robert, this is quite a thing, and I think you can relate to a lot of this.
Interesting stuff. I can tell that I'm talking, but Nico's face is frozen. I don't know if anybody can hear me. Or
I'm just sitting down quietly. You can continue.
Let's just wait and see if Nico can come back online here.
Yeah. No, you can continue, Robert.
The picture I see of Nico, he's very diligent staring at that screen.
Robert, please continue.
And I'm sure he's working feverishly trying to figure out how to get this thing back together. I don't know if anybody can hear me, but I'll just talk thinking that you might if you can. No harm, no foul. That's Mark Devine, and I work for Mark Devine part-time. He has an Unbeatable Mind course that is designed specifically for CEOs, business leaders, and it's the things that he teaches and has taught Navy SEAL teams. And I work training guys, and anyway, we are of the same mindset, and he's sort of a mentor in many ways to me and others. How to lead elite teams, how to build elite teams, how to build organizations, and how to make sure that the organization has the right goals and teaches the right soft skills to its employees. And everything comes from modeling from the top. And so we teach, as goes the lead man or lead woman, as goes the leader, goes the whole organization. And so we encourage those at the top to become the best they can be so they can also help others learn how to be the best they can be. And that comes through humility as well as teachability and ownership of their stuff. So it works in the military and it works with business leaders. And anyway, if any of you would like to contact me, the stuff was on the screen there of how to get a hold of me. And I'm happy to chat with any of you, especially I think there's somebody online from Nigeria and somebody from Norway and some other places. And so it'd be fun to talk to all of you. It's been a long time since I've been back to Scandinavia or been back to Africa. Maybe it'll happen again sometime.
Robert, can you hear me now?
I think Nico is still. These new platforms are very difficult. They look so good at the beginning, and then they just become difficult. So I hope he's able. There's something happening. I hope he's able to figure this one out. And we're sorry to all of you that are watching. I'm sitting here in my backyard, and it's nice. When we get off this podcast, I get to go work out and spend some time working on me a little bit today on a Saturday. Hope you've been working on yourself as well, whatever you're doing this week.
Yeah. Robert, can you hear me now?
There we go.
Yes.
I was talking while you were offline. I don't know if anybody could hear me or not. I just said, well, I'll just say something till Nico comes back.
No, Robert, everyone could hear you. Maybe talk a little bit about, Herman asked the question about, there's such a deficit of leadership and trust in the world today. It's easy to point. I mean, we see the political system, we see the business systems, everything closing down. But it means that, don't conform to what the world is doing. Maybe comment on that.
There are always two cultures. There's the culture that's in the manual. There's the spoken culture in an organization. And then there's the real culture that happens behind the scenes. And usually the cultures are different. The leader says, this is what we do. And then he leads and does something different. Or he allows people underneath him or her to get away with things that shouldn't be done because they play golf together, or they drink together, or their wives are friends. And so there is a disrespect in an organization because the leader does not always set the tone and then model it for everyone else and say, we're all going to be held accountable to the same standards. And so there's a cynicalness in the world with business leaders, political leaders, leaders that they say one thing and they do something else.
Yeah.
And so it's important that we are the same all the time. What's good for you is good for me, and this is what we do. And I want to be held accountable to these principles or these values as much as the organization holds others to that. And I'm going to take the lead role as the leader, and I'm going to say, do as I do, not just as how I say. And then have that accountability. And many people do not want that kind of pressure and accountability. And so they say things and then they go do something else. Is that what you're talking about, Nico?
Yeah. And I think, maybe we can expand this. There's some three nice questions that came up so far. You're already asking, how can I be a better mentee? How can I be someone that is, teachable? How do I, adjust myself to say, you know what, I'm open to learn?
I think you have to find the areas that you're good at. Maybe everybody's good at something, and then you have to do a 360 test on yourself and say, what am I not so good on? And I think that's where the vulnerability and the teachability and the humility, the stewardship, ownership, leadership, that's where those things come to pass.
Yeah.
And many people are too insecure to grow through the areas that are not their strengths, to work on them, to make them stronger. I don't think that everybody has to work on all their non-strengths all the time. I think that sometimes leaders are paid to be leading in their gifting. But if that gifting also has weaknesses to it or vulnerabilities which cause other problems, then that person has to own those and say, I do some things really well and other things I don't do as well. And I'm aware of that and I'm open to growth and to changing from the right people. And those right people are not those who just kiss their butt and say, oh, you're wonderful, you're great, you're the best, But someone will just tell you the truth. And a lot of people don't want the truth. They want just to be told how golden they are. And it's sad because we say charisma or gifting will take you someplace that your character can't keep you. So there's a lot of people that get promoted because of a gifting, but their internal person isn't strong enough to be able to keep them at that high place, and they implode and could fall back down because they were promoted higher than they could live and keep, because their internal side was honeycombed with weaknesses and issues that allowed them to implode in front of the whole group. So you want to learn how to be open and ask questions and read books and go to seminars and find mentors and say, I think I'm okay in this, but I know these are other areas that I could be better at.
You talked about the thinking and how I want to make sure that I keep the positive thinking and cut out of the other areas. And you talk about also the internal journey. How do we build ourselves? And I'm thinking about the thing that said sow a thought, reap an action. Sow an action, reap a character. Sow a character, reap a destiny. And and it carries on like that. So it is all about how do I actually make sure that I go from the right thinking, take ownership of that, building and taking action, then build on that and build a character. And as I develop the character, things just happens because you consistently make the right decisions and be the right person. Any thoughts on that, Robert?
I think the mental journey is an all your life experience.
Yeah.
I thought different in my 20s than I did in my 30s. I thought different in my 30s than my 40s. Life changes happens from 40 to 50. I'm just finishing my 60s, and I have to upgrade, reboot my mind for going into my 70s. And what worked 10 years ago doesn't necessarily work today. There's new things, there's new issues, there's new pressures, there's new stuff. And you've got to learn to think about your thinking. And most people just think. Whatever happens in their brain, they just think it, and whatever is, we call it a monkey gym. There's just these monkeys jumping around in your brain all day long with these different thoughts. And it's just like, wow, how did I think so many different kind of thoughts in a 1 minute period? Because your brain is just out of control. It's just running like monkeys in a cage. And when you finally figure out that there's a ticker tape in your head and it has thoughts, and you back out and you begin to look at the ticker tape in your head and the kind of thoughts that are coming through your head, positive or negative, then you go, wow, are these my thoughts? Or are these thoughts that came from TV, or thoughts that came from my spouse, or from an employee, or from my mom and dad when I was wired really young for failure or success or insecurity or anger or bitterness? Where do these thoughts come from? And what I want to do is I want to change the ticker tape, and I want only the thoughts that I want in my head. And I learn to block out all the other thoughts and don't let them live in my head and plant and bear fruit that is not the fruit that I want. And that takes work. And so we have skills we teach our special ops guys on how to get a hold of your brain and your mind and reboot and think the thoughts that you need to think, that we've trained you to think, versus the thoughts that pressure want to crowd out the good thoughts and bring pressure thoughts that cause you not to make great thoughts. And we talked about this a week or two ago, Nico. I'm a guy that wants to help people. You like to help people too. And I'm known as a guy that's an encourager, The challenge is that I try to help people oftentimes who don't want as much help as I want to help them with.
Yeah.
There are people who don't want to change. There are people who like the way they are. There are people that are content to think the way they think and be the way they are. And we want to promote them. We want to help them prosper, but they don't want to go to the next level. They want to say, it worked for me before, it'll work for me now. If you don't like it, get lost. If you don't agree with me, I'll fire you. And they just are, they like who they are, and it's not good for them to like who they are as much as they like themselves. And so we always are trying to help people who sometimes don't want our help. And you've got to understand who it is that you're talking to, or who you're going to promote, or who you're going to invest more training in. Because if they are unwilling to mature and grow and deal, then it's going to come bite you in the butt later on when they're in a higher position and they act out what you knew they had in them all along. You just didn't challenge it, and you let them stay there, and then they make these bad decisions. And you knew, as you watch them come up the line, it may work for them down here, but it's not going to work for them up here. And so there are those listening today, again, that you know people, and you watch people, and people watch you. And you've got to figure out, are these the kind of people that I can go further with? Or are they going to implode down the road? Drugs, alcohol, issues that they'll, when the pressure gets too big, their brains can't handle it, and they'll act out and cause the company or the group problems because they haven't matured enough to think right. So again, I try to help people who sometimes don't want as much help as they should want. And then you just have to wait for life to have its way with them. And that's what people did with me. Well, they'd say, Robert, you're going to grow up. And I'd say, is it going to be painful? And they say, if you don't change, it's going to be painful. And I go, okay. But the big question is, what question should I ask you that I don't even know to ask you? Because my brain can't even think those concepts. So teach me, what do I ask you that I don't even know how to ask you? And they always laugh and say, well, this is what you should have asked me. And I say, oh, thank you very much. Now, can I ask you now that you've told me? And they give me some insight or some wisdom, and I go, oh, why didn't I think of that? Because you don't want to go living life going, I never knew it. No one ever told me, never crossed my mind. How come they knew it and I didn't know it?
Yeah.
Truth is truth, but there's lots of ways to learn that truth, the painful way or the educated way. And hopefully it's not the painful way.
Yeah, no, that's, I think we call that the Jari window. The things that we don't know. How do we address those, right? But Robert, Polly asked a question.
Do we have some questions?
Yeah, Polly has asked a question. He said, how do I influence upward more effectively?
It's really difficult to do that. You just have to be you. And you have to do stuff that people admire. And people are watching. People watch all the time. But the people above you may not want to learn what you're modeling or what you're trying to do. And then you have to figure out what to do. If you have a leader above you that wants to do it her or his way, and you're trying to model a soft skill or something that can help with team building or understanding employees or whatever, and they don't really give a rip, they pay you to figure it out, they're going to stay the way they are, you're in a tough spot. And you have to figure out, can I live in that spot and be here, or do I need to change jobs? So it's nice that we try to model and try to be the best we can be. Some people appreciate it, some people care less. And you have to figure out what the culture is of your organization and find out if what you're modeling is even appreciated. Maybe they don't even care that you're on time, or that you don't lie, or you don't steal, or you don't gossip, or you're honest. They don't care. Just get your job done. And every organization has its own culture and what's appreciated, what's not.
Robert, and it might be even that you use this time, even if they don't appreciate you, to use that time to actually use it as a training ground, and model what you know, and make the mistakes and get other things.
You bet.
Paul Schubert also asked a question. He said, Robert, what do you consider the most difficult challenge you ever faced, and why?
the most difficult challenge I've ever faced, and why? You know, I get asked that a lot, and this probably is going to go off script, and I'm giving you a notice that I'm not going to try to be religious here. But you asked this question. People say to me, was it jumping out of airplanes? Or was it doing 12 Ironmans? Or was it 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents? Or was it raising 5 kids? Or was it hiring and firing friends? And I'm just going to go off script. And again, this is not for you to, you can do what you want with it. The hardest thing I've ever done in my life is to try to make Jesus my Lord every day. Why? Because there's the outside stuff. Everybody sees the outside stuff. But Jesus knows my heart. And you don't know my heart. But I know my heart, and I know my thinking, and he knows my heart. And when I asked Jesus into my life, I asked him to change me. I want to go to heaven. I mean, that happens, that's bonus, you know. When I asked Jesus in my heart, I asked him to heal me from being a screw up as a 20-year-old. I was getting a master's degree in irresponsibility. And I knew drinking, partying, being messed up, I knew that I was a train wreck waiting to hit a wall. And I knew that I needed help. And so I said, Jesus, come into my life and take control, which is a big ask. Help me be a better person. And that has been a journey, because every single day I have to re-up asking that same thing, because I can bail out at any time and say, I don't want to listen to you anymore. I don't care what you want me to do. I'm not doing it. You know, I don't care if you want me to forgive somebody or not. I ain't doing it. I don't have to sign up every day unless I choose to. And the hardest thing for me is to every day say, okay, it's me again. I need to work on me. And I need to be open to being convicted of things that no one else knows about. But my brain tells me, don't do that. And I go, why? Don't do that. And my conscience every day talks to me, because I've worked on developing a conscience. Some people don't have a conscience. It doesn't bother them at all. Shoot somebody, what's the problem? You know, steal from somebody, no big thing. They're weak. They shouldn't allow me to steal it. Some people have a conscience. And I've worked for years on my conscience to talk to me so that I would learn to think the right thoughts and do the right things. And no one knows what's in my head every day but me. And the hardest thing I've ever done is to listen to those words in my brain, my conscience, and then do the right thing. And doing the right thing is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Every day, every morning, afternoon, evening, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the wise thing? Am I doing the right modeling? And so you could try to work the external things. There's difficult things. But knowing the internal part of you and listening to the internal part and responding without anybody pointing a gun at your head like, you better do it, dude. No, you do it because you listen to the inner voice inside you to do what's right. That's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And it continues to be that way going into my 70s. I've been wrestling with myself since my 20s. Robert, get it together. And I go, I don't feel like getting it together. Or I don't want to forgive. Or I don't want to give. I don't want to be sensitive. I want to just say, do it and get over it. And this voice in my head says, Robert, you're screwed up. Haven't you learned anything over these years? It's more blessed to give than to receive. Nah, I feel like receiving. No, it's more blessed to give than to receive, Owens. Plant seeds. Plant a seed. You plant a seed in the ground, you never get a seed back. you get a bush or a tree or a shrub, and you never give something and get the same thing back. You get it in multiplication. So if I give bitterness, a seed of bitterness, guess what's going to come towards me? A bushel or a tree of bitterness. If I give lacking patience towards someone, guess what I'm going to get? People being very non-patient with me. So every day I plant my positive seeds into the world, expecting that I'm going to get a bush back of kindness and patience and understanding and things back to me. But I live by faith by planting the positive things every day. I open the doors, I pull out chairs for people, ladies, I give money to the homeless, whatever it is, I'm planting my positive stuff every day because I think it's more blessed to give than to receive. But because if I give right, what comes back is going to be big, and it's going to be positive stuff versus negative stuff. And so I live every day, okay, how can I plant a seed of listening or patience or kindness or giving or long suffering, whatever it is? How can I plant those so that I need those someday given back to me? People will cut me some slack. So that's the hardest thing. I'm not trying to be religious, not trying to talk to you about jamming you with Christianity. I just know that he's living in my heart, and he bugs me every single day. And I don't like it sometimes, but I've asked him in to do that. And that's what's the hardest thing for me.
Sure. I thank you for that, Robert. I see Anton and some of the guys, so we appreciate your transparency. Herman asked a question, and he said, what do you do when you screwed up? I mean, you've now made a mistake, and, now you need to get back. Especially if the road ahead looks very hard. How do I deal with that? Dealing with a mistake and the decisions that was wrong.
Again, as Mark Divine said in the video, you've got to own it. McCraven owned it. His ego made those guys go back out there into that wave. It wasn't wise. The first boat that didn't go up was wise. He said, no, we're going to do it anyway. He jumped in the front of the boat. I'm going to do it. And then he had to admit they weren't trained for that, and the boats were not prepared for that, and he had to own the mistake. And you have to own your stuff, whether it's to your kids or to your wife or to your staff or to your community. You've got to be able to say, you know what? I made a mistake, and I'm sorry. And I take responsibility for it, which Mark said also then breeds trust from people because they know that you'll do the right thing versus the easy thing. And most of us, if you're like me, I'd rather do the easy thing sometimes than not do the right thing. And so, saying to my wife, I'm sorry, should be an everyday thing that shouldn't take a bunch of stuff because I'm not a perfect guy. I make mistakes. I don't make my bed, or I don't pick up my clothes or where I should, or sorry, I left the dishes in the sink and I was supposed to wash them, or apologizing to my kids. I'm not a perfect dad. I make mistakes, and they let me know it. So, okay, you're right. I screwed up. Forgive me, But Dad, this is the 10th time you've done it. I'm sorry. I'm mortal. I make mistakes, But wait till you mess up. You hope that I'm not going to jam you up with your 10th mistake. Anyway, so if you haven't learned to say you're sorry and ask for forgiveness and own your stuff, you're in trouble. Because it's going to bite you politically, socially, economically, relationally. It's going to bite you at work. Because people know people read people. And they know when you should say you're sorry and when you don't. They sometimes just shake their head. He doesn't do that. That's not him. And you just go, well, I guess we have to endure him or figure out some way to live with him or her. And again, we, Mark Divine and we train guys. You got to say, I need help. I'm not good at this. I don't like to be vulnerable. I don't want to be transparent. You can see my stuff if I'm transparent. Well, get over it because we can see your stuff anyway. Whether you want us to see it or not, we can still see it. People see stuff. And you just have to grow up. There's a scripture that I was taught years ago. It says, 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11 says, when I was a child, three things. When I was a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child, and I talked like a child. Thought, reasoned, and talked like a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish thinking, reasoning, talking. I have to change my reasoning, how I reason, how I think, and how I talk. And you can tell people by the way they reason, they think, and they talk. And immature people leak immaturity. And mature people leak maturity in different ways. So I am working on growing up. I don't want to be acting like an immature kid. I want to act like a mature, I want to not just act, I would like to be a mature man. And that means I make mistakes and I can own them and it doesn't rock my world. I just say, sorry, I'll try better. And if that rocks someone, they're immature. And they'll go through a lot of marriages and a lot of employees. And they'll say, why am I always getting fired? Or why, this guy came in and said, my wife is screwed up. I said, wait a minute, this is your fourth wife. And he goes, yeah, well, they're all messed up. And I said, got it. So you chose the first one and she was messed up. And then you chose the second one and she was messed up. And then you chose the third. And either first of all, you're really a bad chooser, number one. I mean, you need help. Number two, hey, dude, it's not them, it's you. You're screwed up. And you blame the women. I say, and he says, what are you talking about? I said, hey, you're a jerk. I wouldn't live with you either. And then he looks at me and says, you can't say that. I said, I am. I'm just telling you. You don't deserve 8 more wives. You'll blow everybody up in your life. You need to change some stuff in your life. And he just looked at me and I said, but I love you. I'm for you. But you got issues, dude. And he just didn't know what to say. She left. The fourth one, got rid of that one. And he was single for a long time, because it's always somebody else's problem. I'm always a victim. I'm not treated fairly. And you just go, that's what the guys say in prison. I had a TV program that went into prisons, and I used to go to prisons all the time. And like 4 different prisons, medium and maximum. And I'd go in there and I'd say, I know all of you have been messed up. You're all screwed up, right? The police and the district attorney and the judges have all done you wrong, right? And they all go, yep. None of you are guilty in here, right? No, that's right. You're still all immature and denial. That's why you're going to be in prison, because you can't own your stuff. You're never guilty, right? Yeah, we're not guilty. They screwed me. All right. That's why we need to lock you up, because you just don't get it. And, some people just blame the world. The world's done them wrong, and woe is me. And I've had 5 kids, right? So I've changed a lot of diapers, or nappies, as you may say over in Europe. I've changed a lot of poopy diapers, lift the legs up and, oh God, you wipe that thing, clean it, put the new diaper on and stuff. And, it's no big thing when a baby's a baby. You expect a baby to do that. And then you hope they get the potty training about 2, can you get on the toilet? Can you do it here, oop, down the leg, one again, sorry. Well, and you laugh because, someday they're going to get it. But when you see an adult who's 20, 30, 40s on, and they're still got their diaper on and still full of poop, and they got a red rash, and they got an attitude, and the world has just done them wrong, and no one understands them, and they're right, and the whole world is wrong, and you say, dude, you need to change your diaper. I mean, when you're 2 or 3 years old or whatever it was, you could be like that. But being through your 3rd marriage or been fired 5 times or this and that, and it's always somebody else's problem. You need to change your diaper, dude. You're screwed up. They look at you. They're like, everybody's got stuff. Just learn to deal with your stuff, unless you want to be a victim all the time. And I mean, I'm adopted. I don't know who my parents are, and people said, you're a mistake. When I was a little kid, Mom, am I a mistake? No, you're not a mistake. We chose you. Okay. Hey, Mom, am I smart? Am I this or that? And you have to work through your stuff. And everybody's got stuff, right? And if you don't, you carry that stuff into your life and you give it to your kids, and go through marriages and get fire stuff. And people just say, what's wrong with everybody? They don't understand me. No, you don't understand yourself. You need to grow. And it's painful. And the older you get, the more painful it is if you don't deal with it. So, I've been trying to work on my stuff for a long time. And that's a long-winded answer. I'm sorry.
Robert, I know you shared this story previously about, the guy said it's everyone else's fault in all their marriages. And I mean, as you said, he was actually, multimillionaire, and nobody had the guts to actually tell him that. And you told him that. So good for you, because now he's paying you to actually tell him stuff where nobody else has got the guts to tell him that. But it's the right kind of thing to do. Sorry, you want to respond, because I want to ask a question that Russell asked, but maybe you want to respond to that first.
No, it's not. It's just that we've got to have the right kind of people around us. Otherwise, they enable us to stay the way we are. I need good friends who will tell me the truth. I don't need friends who kiss my butt. I don't need friends that tell me how great I am. I know it's not true. I have people say, "Hey, Robert, you're the bomb. You're this, you're that. Don't you know you're this, and all the stuff you've done, and nationally and internationally." And I go, "Get over it. I put my socks on one foot at a time, like you. I put my underpants on one leg at a time, just like you. I'm just a guy working on my stuff, and I need people to keep me honest. They remind me, hey, Robert, don't be thinking too much, dude." And I go, I just need good friends who'll tell me the truth. Keep my feet on the ground. Be normal. And some people have their posse around them to tell them how great they are. And I don't need people to tell me anything but, hey, Robert, just be real. Just deal. Just work on your stuff. Stay you. Stay humble. And, I say thank you. And they're hard to find.
Good. Robert, I think we're going to do a last question. Russell asked and said, you know what you've done through your, and I'm paraphrasing Russell, your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. A lot of people are, getting to their 50s. And then, Gustav, another friend of mine, said, you've got a lot of people, they climb up the ladder. And then when they get to the top of the ladder, they realize the ladder is against the wrong wall. And, so the question is, I'm going through, the 20s, 30s, 40s, and I'm getting into my 50s. I reevaluate life, and now I want to see, what else do I want to do? What challenges do I want to do? And how do I navigate this transition? And taking stock of who I am and what I want to do and where I want to go.
Hey, I want everybody listening to me to get out a piece of paper and pencil. I want you to write something down. I want to give you something that just rocks me. You ready? Here we go. The one thing that is worse than failure, write this down. The one thing that is worse than failure is succeeding at something that doesn't matter. Get it?
Yeah.
The one thing that is worse than failure is to climb the ladder and get to the top and find out you've succeeded at something that doesn't matter. You've got to find out what really matters to you or to your company. You've got to find out what really matters. Is it just building an organization? Is it just profits? Is it dividends and shareholder stuff? Well, what is it that when you get done, you can go high five and I made a difference in the world. I helped people. I gave jobs to families. I helped people medically. I gave people hope. I've had money and I've lost money. And I've had money and I've lost money. I've had friends and lost friends. And what you'll think about as you get older is, am I doing something that really makes a difference? Does anybody really care? Is it just about more vacations, bigger homes, bigger cars, have people notice you in public? What is it that really matters? And so at 50, you have a chance of saying, okay, I've given probably 20, 25 years to something. Um, is it the hill I want to die on? Or is there something more quality that I can be doing in my life that will help more people? And I would encourage you, what do you want your obituary to say? What do you want your obituary? And, I've been to a lot of funerals. And the best funerals are the ones where the people just keep standing up and saying, this is what that lady did for me, or this is what that man did for me, or this is how they impacted my life. I've been to funerals where no one said anything. They just put the guy in the ground. The guy says some nice things. Everybody goes, next, go out, put him in the ground. Everybody goes out and has lunch. I've been to some funerals that they couldn't stop it. They go on for an hour, 2 hours, because people just keep standing up and saying, what a wonderful person this person was, and what they did, how they did it, and how it impacted me. There's the day you were born, and then there was the day you die, and what's in between that? The dash. And life is about the dash. And what do you want people to say about you when you're dead? He was selfish. She was selfish. Really into clothes. Really into cars. Really into hobbies. Really into big houses. Really into growing profits. What do you want people to say about you? And I hope that when I die, people go, now Owens, now he was an interesting guy. And, he did this and he did that and he said this and I received an unexpected card, all right? And people say nice things about me. Not because I need nice things said about me, but I want to live the kind of life where people go, well, that guy, I really liked him, or he impacted me, or he helped me, or he listened to me, or he went the extra mile for me. What do you want people to say about you? When my father died, people just said really nice things about my dad. People drove from all over, flew in from places I want to be there. And I sat there and, wow, my dad, really had impact in the FBI, in Stanford, as a prosecuting attorney in the war crimes trials in Manila, like Nuremberg for Germany and Manila. And all these judges, these lawyers, district attorneys, we remember your father. This is what he did. And I went, wow, and my mom, people just said really nice things about my mom working with nursing and homes and orphans and, all this stuff, sweet things. And when you watch that, you sort of say, I wonder what they're going to say about me. He was a jerk, self-centered, or, like always had the newest car, or, what are my kids going to say about me? And so I think on that, not just because of my age, but I've been thinking for a long time. Some people live well and some people don't live well. Some people just exist and some people really live. And I'm hoping you that listen to me will really choose to live, and life is found in giving, not getting. The rich moments in life are when you get to give to someone and they're just amazed and you help people and they come back 10, 15 years later and you say, hey, that thing that you did, that changed my life. And that's what I think about at 40, 50, 60, 70. And as my life maybe winds down, my dad died at 101, but I'm working hard to be the best version of me I can be. And I live in a place where all these Ferraris and Lamborghinis and stuff, and I drive a Toyota and could care less. I don't need, hey, look at Owens. I don't need it. And if you need something like that, more power to you. But for me, I want life to be simple, and I want to be kind and a patient guy, and I want to be a good guy. And that's what I think about at 50 and 60. So I don't know if that answers all that, but that's where I'm living.
Robert, I really appreciate your time and a lot of the wisdom and your thoughts and thinking. I'm gonna maybe I'm gonna do two things. Maybe close off with the last question to you, and then I'll play a little song about Michael Jackson. And I maybe last question is what is next for you? What is your big thing? I think you focus about making sure that I do the best version of myself. But what is the next challenge for you that you want to do? That you say I want to try that, and maybe close us out, and then I'll play this song. Robert, maybe some last words.
You know, my dad said to me at 95, if I had known I was going to live 30 years past retirement, they retired him out at 60. And at 95, he said, if I'd known that I was going to live 35 years past retirement, I would have started a whole nother career. He said to me, Robert, you need a business plan for 60 to 90. What are you going to do? I lived with my dad, and I took care of my dad from 92 to 101. And I shut down my life pretty much and just worked with my dad. And he said, when I'm dead, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. He said, you need to make a comeback. And what do you want to do? He said, you need a business plan. So I thought about it. And so I put together a business plan from 60 to 90 because I want to have some reason to get out of bed every morning. I don't want to be a retiree playing golf. It's too boring. I mean, you can only play so much golf or something. So I put together a business plan. And the business plan is I want to go out as a health and wellness guy, a senior athlete who speaks to all age groups about mental toughness and mental resiliency. I want to continue to challenge myself and then live a health and wellness kind of life to see how I can continue to get to 90 and be as strong as I can be, mentoring a lot of kids, working with businesses, and being in the game versus being put on the shelf somewhere and becoming irrelevant and telling old stories. So my goal is I'm closing out my life with my business plan of going back to Africa and South America and places, and encouraging, work with businesses and teach, and then compete in my age group and be a senior athlete. If I had my way, I would try to become the oldest Ironman in the world. Right now, the record is 85. So I've set my sights with my plan to get to 86. I'm going to smoke that record. If God is gracious, I don't lose my brain with Alzheimer's or something. I hope to God that I can go, I did that sucker, because it gives me something to live for every day. Every morning when I go to the gym here after this, I'm working on my brand. My brand is I'm going to get to 90, like Tom Brady. He stayed in the game. I'm going to stay in the game as long as I can and just go out strong, mentally viable, encouraging others, coaching, and having a great time, eating good, sleeping good, and saying, "Hey kids, what's your issue? You're just lazy." The best part about when the founder of Spartan Games, Joe DeSena, said, "You're the fittest and mentally toughest 66-year-old in the world." I said, "Come on, Joe." He said, "There are 20-year-olds that can't do what you do." And I just smiled and I said, maybe. But if they try, I'm going to put it in their face. I'm going to try to smoke them. These kids, we should be clapping for kids. Yay, I'm all for kids. Those kids ought to be clapping for us. Hey, look at them. And so those young people need to know you just can't put us out to pasture. We're still in the game, right? And we're going to be in the game. So don't write us off too soon. And that's what I have fun thinking about when I go to this gym now, this MMA, UFC gym, and watch all these girls and boys hit these bags and kick and fight and stuff. And they go, "Hey, Mr. Owens," And I go, "What's up?" And we just have a great time. I go, "You're hot, for 22 or 35, whatever it is, but it's a long road, dude. Better stay in the game."
Robert,
I probably let me say I just got back from being with Tom Brady's place.
yeah.
So they asked me to do a podcast because I'm an old guy, and so I went to Tom Brady's place in Tampa, Florida, to go to his health and wellness center, and they assessed me as an old guy, And I just love being the oldest guy that's ever been in the Tom Brady thing, because Tom Brady has this health and wellness fitness thing on how he can play longer than the critics tell him he can. And so I just love being in there, because all these guys are trying to prolong whatever they're doing longer through health and fitness and eating, nutrition, and then training. And so the whole group is filled with people pressing the limits. You're too old. Nah, we're not too old. We're going to show you. And it was really fun to be down there with that mentality of everybody there has been told can't, couldn't, shouldn't, whatever. And they're all going, watch me. Just tell me I can't do it, and bada bing, we're in the game. So that's how I want to go out at 90 years old. I want to high five some kid and say, you're just lazy, dude.
Robert, thank you very much again. I think this is going to be lovely. I'm going to close out just with a song. And it's about Charlie Chaplin wrote this song, about toughness in life. And he also said, you know what? Just smile. Sometimes we just need to smile and carry on and say, you know what? I'm gonna own it. I'm gonna do this. So maybe just if I can bring this up, maybe
those Navy SEAL guys carrying that log. That's about a 400-pound log, and it's miserable and it's tough in the sand. And we train kids how to do that. That's a teamwork exercise. And anyway, that picture brings up all kinds of thoughts for me.
Good. Guys, I'm going to close out. Thank you very much for your attendance. If you
Thanks, everybody.
Make a contact with Robert, please do. And let's look at some of the wisdom, and let's stay in the game.
Let's stay in the game.
The next challenge.
Thank you.
Smile, though your heart is aching.
What do you think, Nico?
Smile, even though it's breaking. When there are clouds in the sky, you'll get by. If you smile with your fear and sorrow, smile and maybe tomorrow you'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just
press this arrow that's on my screen.
light up your face with gladness, hide every trace of sadness. Although a tear may be ever so near, that's the time you must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use in crying? You'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile. Though your heart is aching, smile even though it's breaking. When there are clouds in the sky, you get by. If you smile with your fear and sorrow, smile and maybe tomorrow you'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile. your face with gladness, hide every trace of sadness. Although a tear may be ever so near, that's the time you must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use in crying? You find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile.
Texans.